they add and advertise that goes, that limited goes. Well, I also understand that, we've done it differently in the past, and we're not saying that's necessarily the wrong way to go, but we're just trying to make sure that all the T's are crossed, dotted, if you will. So again, our recommendation is to bid that portion, but like you said, it's a small amount.
Okay, we'll take it up as a board. Let's take a vote. Do we proceed rebidding that, or do we just table that whole construction manager position? Board?
Based on CPH's qualification and from the breadth and the depth of experience that they have, I believe that they can, certainly my opinion is that they can, I'm not the engineer, but I think that they can serve that role. That's my opinion.
I agree.
Agree. So let's take a vote. Or do we need a vote? Motion. Somebody needs to make a motion. I guess I'm not allowed. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. Just as I'm making myself clear, it's not that I don't think they're a qualified contractor and able to do the construction oversight. It's just in terms of making sure we're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's with respect to the FEMA bid requirement. That's why we're sort of recommending that, if you want to get FEMA reimbursement for the $75,000, you may want to run that back through a quick RFQ process. It should not delay you all. And you can still approve your district engineer contract today as well, if that's what you want to do.
Well, I mean, again, Jared, I'm going to repeat it again. Precedence has already been set, number one. Number two, the process you're describing costs money. It costs money, and it takes time to evaluate. It costs us money for people to evaluate, etc. And again, if precedence has been set, and why wasn't this brought up on phase one by council? I want to know that, because obviously precedence has been set, whereas Josh Evans, their engineer of record, was also the construction manager. So why wasn't this discussed before by Wes? And maybe Wes needs to answer that. But I want a direct answer, because it's contradictory, and I don't like contradictory issues. So I want to understand why, going forward, now all of a sudden, we have an issue, and understand the cost of this, and why we need to incur extra costs when we've already made a decision, number one, we're proceeding down that path, number two, and we have precedence, number three. I want to know that. Thank you.
Let me see if I can address that too, George, because I understand where you're coming from. You don't want to just needlessly spend money. I would say that the bid requirements for FEMA are not 100% clear. I think that we have heightened sensitivity to the FEMA process. Obviously, we have not sort of overseen the process from the beginning that's been handled by others. But you all are asking us, do we need to bid this in a special way? Our recommendation is, in a month of caution, to bid just the construction manager portion again. But I also understand your perspective. If you all are comfortable, with that sort of additional risk that may or may not get reimbursed, I proceed. And very much the project, the way we did it is under further stamp, which makes it different than the period that we're traveling under now.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Jared. Let's go ahead. Motion move forward.
Motion to, I guess we're looking for is motion to move forward with using QE for project management, construction manager, and no further negotiations with
Not ECS, just construct.
It would be a motion, isn't it, really, to table the RFQ process for a construction manager. And
Yes, sir.
But you have no RFQ process for that. You're not tabling anything.
Well, it was actually authorized at the last meeting, so I'm sort of following up in that direction at the last meeting. It was authorized if staff was acting in the analysis that, hey, we think we need to go forward and do it as an RFQ. I think there was authorization on the record to move forward. I think that's fine back today, but I understand where it's coming from. If you all don't want to do that, that's fine. And the motion would be to rescind that final authorization with the understanding that once we take up our district engineer contract, we would pull that scope into that contract.
we talked earlier about the ECS proposal and the ongoing negotiation with them. And I thought we agreed that we would continue that, recognizing that there was a likelihood that we may retain CPH as our district engineer, at which point they may be qualified to take on that construction oversight and quality assurance program. So I don't want to stop, I don't want to move and spend money on ECS right now, at least from my view. I would recommend that we proceed with the discussion of CPH as our district engineer, table the discussions on retaining them for construction oversight and quality today, since it's not urgent, and then work through whether we need an RFP process or we can do it directly, as has been done through precedent. So I believe that encapsulates our discussions earlier. I welcome anybody else's different views.
What I'm saying is, kind of what I said before, is to no longer have construction manager discussions with BCS.
My recommendation was that while CPH is in the wings, don't spend any more money with ECS. Maybe CPH will say, no, we don't want to do that for this reason, and maybe then we need to continue with ECS. So I don't want to cancel, forego any more. I just don't want to spend money on ECS right now. Me anyway. So
if I could just restate what you're saying, I think at least you and I are on the same page. The concept is that ECS is our quality assurance person, and there is the possibility that because there's overlap in roles, that you could probably fit some of the construction manager role under that contract, and I think that's fine. We can continue to have that discussion. That's part one. Then the question is, what do we do with the other $75,000 to $100,000 worth of construction management services that need to be provided? And what we've suggested, and I think George thought to go this direction, that's a policy decision that it's his right to make. But you can either put that under the engineer contract, or pursuant to the prior authorization, we can do a new RFQ. The decision that I think we're taking up right now is basically canceling that RFQ, that additional RFQ for construction manager services, and instead you proceed with that discussion with the your district engineer, assuming that just gets made today. Does that make sense?
that makes sense for me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So what motion should we be making, Gary?
So it would be a motion to rescind the construction manager RFQ authorization.
No, at the last meeting, what they said to do was to look if their contract, if they could extend it to do this, and if not, go out for an RFQ. So if they're not going out for an RFQ, there's nothing to cancel.
Okay, that's fine. As long as we've got a statement on the record that that's the intent, I think that at least gives that the direction moving forward.
So not move further with an RFQ for construction manager, and to further pursue such services from the new engineer record.
Correct. Or some combination of them and ECS.
Or quality, exactly, or future quality, financial quality. Because again,
Once we find out, we're going to talk about it in a minute, who the engineer of record is going to be, what their capabilities are, what they agree to, how much they would charge, etc. Then we'll be able to make a final determination of how we want to handle construction services and quality services in combination with several parties, the contractor, quality engineer, and the construction manager. Okay.
I don't think we need a vote to do that. I think it's okay, just put consensus on the record. Okay?
Great.
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm, all right, let's move on then to item,
What is 219 for? What is that about? I mean, I've read it 10 times and, yeah, okay.
Let's go back to the, well, we want to do management company or.
Let's go back to management company. So,
Item I2.
okay, at the last meeting, the board discussed the fact that Heritage Bay had an extremely successful experience by having an integrated services CDD management company directly involved with their RIPRAP project. And we, as a board, decided to investigate it, and I did, and found out that it was a great idea. At the last meeting, the discussion was tabled pending the development of the specification. Well, I developed the specification, it's published, and what I'd like to do, and again, I guess I'm not allowed to make the motion, but what I'd like to do is have the board consider that specification and then take a vote on whether we need to proceed as soon as possible with obtaining quotes for a fully integrated services CDD management company.
Can I just add just a preliminary comment on that? And it relates to the strategic planning agenda item way at the bottom, but in view of any consideration, and I would definitely want to take a look, George, what you have here, what we need to bear in mind is that the status quo, whereas the assignment of maintenance agreements to QCA was done pre-turnover of the association, and I really think that this body needs to reevaluate its role in managing its own assets. I've talked to Wes about this. I feel fairly strongly about this, that if we own and are responsible for the management of certain assets, our lakes, our ponds, our stormwater management system, and we're shoving off the responsibility to somebody else, the QCA, then I think we're being neglectful. That's my personal opinion. I think in the future, we can't do it today, but in the future, we need to reevaluate that agreement and throw the thing away, reevaluate what role the CDD plays in managing the assets that is under its jurisdiction, and any consideration of a management company, an engineering firm, whomever we're working with, must have the future in view, not just today's immediate pressing needs. And I just want to remind each one of us that we got to think 5 years out. Let's not worry about just today.
Thank you. To respond to that comment, if you look on page 11 and page 12, this specification contains very detailed requirements for a fully integrated responsibility list for this management company that includes major maintenance, monthly, yearly maintenance programs, as well as capital improvements. So this, by the way, I don't want to take full credit for the development of this, because basically I worked with Heritage Bay and their specification that they use to hire their company that performs all of the services that you just mentioned. So we are covered from the standpoint of, again, maintenance, major maintenance projects, and capital projects. If you look in here, there's everything from water inspections to invasive plant counts to stormwater drainage inspections, monitoring services, procurement of services, and the like. So I believe this does, number one, address it, and number two, it addresses it from an experiential point of view, because Heritage Bay uses this very successfully to manage their system and get all the work they need done.
So, I think this is a pretty great, expansive scope of services. It will result in a proposal that is hard to quantify, because unless they know what our intent is and our scope of our project, the number of lakes, they can't provide fees for this. What it does do is identify their overall oversight responsibility. The management company, I don't think, will be visually identifying and inspecting all stormwater drainage structures. They will commission the district engineer towards those ends, or another engineer towards those ends. So my question is, how do we expect a financial response to result from this unless they give us a shopping list of fees for the essential components and exclude other of these items for future subcontracts that they will be responsible for securing and overseeing?
Yes, very good question. Yes, indeed, that's what they do. They do provide a shopping list for the services, and they can do one of two things. They can either just defer the cost of specific subcontracts for the future, or give us an estimate of what similar communities basically are spending. As an example, I have had discussions with the Heritage Bay Management Company, and they gave me approximate expenditures for these activities, and they would be happy to, like in their example, they would be happy to give us approximate costs of what those subcontracts would be. Yes, you're correct, they do hire a company to count invasive plants along the lakeshore. So they would say, we do this, and the direct cost would be this. We have experience on counting invasive plants. Typically for a facility like yours, for instance, next door at Heritage Bay, it would be $10,000 a year. So when you develop your budget with an integrated approach, it would cost you $10,000 for this.
Can I make one, to expand on George's point, and then Stan, I'll let you share. I made notes to myself in preparation for today's meeting. I've gone to Heritage Bay's meetings. I've talked to them as well. Didn't realize we were both talking, but we're not allowed to know that. I use their budget, their annual budget. Now, their annual budget's prepared a lot differently than ours. The line items are a little bit different. They use a number of subcontractors. I know every one of who those subcontractors are and their capabilities. But the note that I made to self, in discussing this, 2 points. One is an overall point about any management contract. Regardless, the buck has to stop with that management company, period. So if our various subcontractors are not fulfilling their duties, I think that's on the management company, and that's what I view, and from what I've observed, is happening. So while they're not physically doing every one of those things, the buck stops with that management company, and I think that's important because we're part-timers. In terms of, we meet once a month. We need somebody that can really watch over the shoulder every moment and be expedient in reporting things that are urgent, etc. And they do that. In looking at their budget, I believe that any management company, knowing the size of the number of ponds, the number of lakes, waterways, drains, it's all on the plan, it's all on the permit, it should be fairly feasible to address this financially. And we can pick and choose. And the other point that I want to make after meeting with Heritage Bay, because our waterways are interconnected and because these developments were built under one permit, I think it's incumbent upon this CDD to work as closely as possible with Heritage Bay and align ourselves as closely as possible for efficiencies of scale, because if we make a mistake, it affects them. If they make a mistake, it affects us. We need to work in a much more harmonious process. And if efficiencies can be gained, I'm all for that. And that's my objective, is to see a more efficient, productive way of doing business. Yeah.
I also have attended a Heritage Bay CDD meeting, and one of the things that's obvious watching what they're doing with the use of a full-scale management company is they are actually covering all the bases. And to this point, the Corey CDD has not covered all the bases. In fact, there's bases that haven't even been taken out of the box and put onto the field. We have a big project in front of us that we'll get through, and then we need to make up for several years of items that have never even been attended to. And as Tim said, as part-timers, that's very difficult for us also because of the sunshine laws to actually coordinate that. We need a manager to put that together and help direct us. And the direction that is given to the Heritage Bay CDD is very precise, very inclusive, and they explore several options for each decision to help the board make their decisions. It is more costly, no question. However, we've all seen firsthand the cost that can be incurred by not covering the bases.
I would offer somewhat divergent views. First of all, I don't believe the buck stops with the management company. I believe the buck stops with the people that are sitting at this table.
I'm talking about day-to-day flagging.
Yeah, okay. No question. No question. Management's a hierarchy, and at the end of the day, we're the ones who provide direction. We're the ones who select the management company.
Buck stops with us.
We're the ones who establish budgets. We're the ones who establish scope. I believe that this RFP is okay. I think that it will result in an increased budget because we're doing more things that presumably we need to do. So I'm not going to knock that. I think there's lake management issues that we haven't undertaken, certainly by comparison to Heritage, whose reports are far more expansive. They're doing more studies, more lake management analyses, some of which is under the QCA of today, but will come back to us, I suppose. But my only, and I want to go back to the motion or the agenda item, which is the RFQ. This is an RFQ or is it an RFP? Are we looking for fees out of this or disqualifications? So it's a proposal, it's fees. I would, no, I understand, but I would, in order to make the evaluation process easier for us, almost give them a proposal form like you would give to the contractors for the items. For example, attending meetings, preparation meetings and minutes, annual budgets, absent that, I don't know how you're going to get a comparison of proposals from management companies because the scope is so broad.
There's not going to be, I don't see you're going to have a whole lot because there's very few companies in the state.
Which makes it even more difficult. So if you have 2 respondents and their prices are X and 7X, then you're forcing yourself to the X price. So my only comment is, and I hope I'm wrong, is that when we get proposals, I hope we'll be able to discern the difference in companies and their proposals, their scope, and their fees. So, absent that, I support the issuance of this RFQ. P.
Is there a motion to go forward with putting out the full service RFP?
Okay, I'll second the motion.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
One quick point I just wanted to make too. This specification and this whole concept, this idea, prepares us for January 1st, 2021, which is when the contract with the QCA expires. And again, to reiterate, the last I've been told, they have every intention of turning over the contract for maintenance to us.
Well, another point, Wes and I have discussed this at length. That contract can be rescinded at any moment by both parties. So
You'd be happy to do it.
Cheryl and I have talked about this, yeah. So, but, we got a lot on our plate. We can only do so much, in so little time, but I want to look forward, as Cheryl well knows, so.
Is there a contemplated return date on the RFP? A week, a month? When are we going to get responses to the RFP?
What's the standard? It's 14 days.
It's,
I would say by next meeting.
I would ask that we have
Next
that.
meeting. By next meeting.
My point is that I would ask that we get responses, which is a month. If we can have them before,
The least amount is 14 days, you have to get it in the paper.
I'd say 21 days from
But
this.
it's, you know, they have to be, have time to do it.
Sure.
so the goal would be if we could get a response before the next meeting so we can discuss the next meeting.
Yeah, and the next meeting is May 22nd, so if we received it by the 20th of May, that's actually more than a month, you know, so. Okay. Next. Yeah.
Yeah, two questions.
What is your name, sir?
Doug Gober, 9380 Slate Court. My recollection was that this was going to be a 6-month project. So, you know, if we got to meet November 1st, I don't see how we do that without starting May 1st, and it doesn't sound like we're going to be starting on May 1st. That's my first
So
question.
you're talking about phase 2 to construction.
Well, I'm talking about fixing the lake.
Answer one at a time.
Yeah.
The contractor who left a little earlier knows about our November 1st date. We've talked to him about a start date on or about June 1st, and he says he will meet that November 1st date. So for FEMA compliance, we're going to get an engineer's report on FEMA in a minute. We still expect to finish phase 2 before November 1st.
Great. Well, I just remember 6 months being said, so that didn't matter. Second question. Go ahead.
And the letter of intent that we're issuing will allow them to start crushing rock fairly quickly. So, and that's all part of the project schedule, right? Crush rock and lay it.
Perfect. My second question is, last time this took place, you sent out notices to people about their docks, that they needed to get the boats off, they needed the canopies off. A lot of people are leaving, including myself. My boat's going off the dock, but you wanted canopies off as well. So I think it would be important to let people know before they get out of here, because a lot of people are leaving right now to get out of here. I already have the disconnect on my dock, all this stuff, but I think it's important that people know that before they leave. A lot of people are leaving.
We have a lot going on, and sometimes the most important things fall through the cracks, so thank you. It's one of those things that we've all talked about in the past, but it's one of those things that, and I appreciate your response, your remarks, thank you.
Thank you.
So having said that, what else is there like that that we've talked about but haven't? Docks, access, because homeowners are leaving, we're going to be, if they're leaving, I guess access through their easements for repair of the docks and so forth is no big deal.
The roads are already covered, speed bumps and all that.
Josh, does anything come to your mind? Remember, because we went through all this with phase 1, and there is a lot of pre-planning that you're exactly right. Now is the time since people are leaving and have left.
We disconnected the water and sewer, responsible water service connects.
The
What do you say?
To the dock.
water connects.
Water and electric. There's a few water, but there's still water. And an announcement went out by the QCA last time.
Oh, so it's their job.
Well, we initiated that with them and they said no.
We were going to see.
We will send that out.
Thank you. You are going to see, you're going to see a level of communication that's unprecedented. I can guarantee it. I'll personally guarantee it. I will go knock on your door or call you to make sure. In Wisconsin? In Wisconsin. That everything's set. I will do that.
I'm in Philly.
Sure.
Pennsylvania.
Any surprise.
Wait, Pennsylvania.
I'm here full time. Don't worry.
Well, I put the quick disconnect on my electric,
Right.
because last time they just cut them.
Nobody's going to have anything screwed up, any dock messed up, because they weren't informed. We're going to move heaven and earth to try to contact you, and then if we can, then we'll give up. But before heaven and earth, no, it's not going to happen. And I think just from the standpoint of what Lloyd described in terms of the quality plan, quality enterprises, quality plan that you heard, these people don't want any problems either. The company doesn't want any homeowner coming back and saying, you wrecked my dock, or you ripped my light out. We are going to work together, and we're going to press on that. The homeowner comes first. No advance ones.
I remember looking at the plans. I think there's 10 to 14 docks in phase 2. Forget about phase 3 and phase 2. But I'm not so sure we shouldn't be talking about phase 3 docks as well. in whatever notice, because that notice, that phase 3 might start still in the summertime, so we need to notify those folks as well.
Yes and no. The reason I say no is because I'm still unclear about the methodology, for instance, with the Sac Creek dams. You know, how are they going to, like, should we do anything with the docket off in order to fix it?
Don't know, but I'd rather notice them that we might need to. So this is not the agenda item or the form, but we need to be more thoughtful. We've been trying to get through all this other stuff. Now the rubber's hitting the road, we're going to execute, we need to get the details together. And that might best be done with Josh and or Quality, looking at every single dot to see what needs to be done.
Yeah, but we did talk to Quality about it. When we were dealing with the big picture, we said at some point we're going to have to get down to the micro level and actually look at each of the various properties to see what's going to have to be done. So we've started that discussion already. Now that we're getting closer to it, yes, you're 100% correct, because I don't want any issues coming up where the homeowner is really upset that we did something that they weren't aware of or we didn't do it properly. Yes.
Yeah, because I know JD put most of the docks in Oak Lawn on the west side. And I had extended docks. Yeah, J&M. I had extended ramps put in because they moved the piers out because the dock was sitting on rocks. So he states that those aluminum docks, those ramps can be bent very easily. So you got to know what you're doing when you disconnect those and move those out. He was concerned about that. I had suggested meetings ago on the other board that they look at, the contractor look at J&M to do that for them, subcontract that out. So there isn't any issues with that. That was just a suggestion.
Last year, I asked Jeff from J&M to come to the CDD meeting.
He did.
And he did.
He did.
And, I wasn't on the CDD board.
Right.
I own a dock that got ripped away and sunk in the lake.
Right.
And I have to bring it up myself and fix it. So, that is important, that somebody who understands how they're attached, and Jeff's willing to do that.
Right, he is.
He's very busy, but he's willing to do it.
Yeah, he's not cheap. I'd like to find another contractor.
Joe?
Joe Boudreaux, hey, you talk about, for one, thanks a lot, guys. This is the best conversation I've heard in a long time on a CDD in many years. But I want to get, Stan, you brought up a point about falling through the cracks. I just want to make sure that the preserve has a lot more water in it than it ever has had.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if those tubes have been cleared out before we have the rainy season come?
That's in the scope.
It is, okay. I just want to make sure that you guys were on it.
I brought that up the last
Huh?
meeting.
For the rainy season.
Well, as long as it gets cleared. I mean, it's got
It's
lots
going to
of.
be cleared.
That was part of the discussion about putting the lake back to where it needs to be, or where it's designed to be at the.
I was just filling in a blank I didn't hear.
Cleaning out those tubes is part of it.
Okay, thanks, guys.
And I see Kevin's here. One of the things I know he's down in charge of is